Almost everyone's in on the poll. All right, we have over 90% participation, so let's go ahead and end the poll now and share the results. All right, so actually the majority of you have spent more than 2 weeks on a bike. That is crazy. I did not expect that. I should have added more than a month or more than 3 months. So if people want to put how long their longest bike tour is in the chat, super curious as to how long that's been for some of you. And then the second most common is the day rides only. So we really like not so many people who have just done the 1 night to 1 week tours. It's sort of all or nothing for these folks. Interesting, unexpected, love that. Okay, so thank you everybody for joining us tonight for this special presentation. Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge that those of us who are in Seattle are on Duwamish native lands. And if you are interested in learning more about Duwamish culture or in paying rent directly to the Duwamish tribe, you can do that at realrentduwamish.org. We're going to share that link in the chat. Real Rent Duwamish is helps revive the Duwamish culture, the vitality of the Duwamish tribe, and you can pay rent directly to the people whose lands we're occupying right now. So I just wanted to share that resource. We're going to be talking about a lot of other land outside of Seattle today. Denise, on her very long bike tour, rode through the traditional lands of really dozens of people. And so we're going to share another link, native-land.ca, which is actually a global map where you can see whose traditional land you might be living on or recreating on, or if you're just interested in looking into where we visit today on our virtual tour. So I just wanted to take some time to acknowledge that. Many of you are familiar faces and are familiar with Bikeworks, but I know there's a lot of new people in the room today, so I just wanted to quickly introduce you all. My name's Elise. I'm the Development and Communications Coordinator at Bikeworks. We have Jess Green, Deb Sauls, and Julie York on the call today, and I think Jim Labayan as well is staff member on the call today. Bikeworks is a nonprofit organization. We promote the bicycle as a vehicle for change. We do that through our youth and adult programming, our youth empowerment and leadership initiatives. We also do that through our bicycle recycling program. We have a nonprofit bike shop in Columbia City where we sell refurbished bikes as well as new bikes and parts. And we do a lot of community building and community organizing around a love of bicycles, environmentalism, youth, and social justice. So welcome, and I hope those of you who aren't familiar with Bikeworks will follow us on social media and sign up for our newsletter as well. We're going to have more of these sorts of online events and cool opportunities to stay connected while we must stay apart during these very difficult times. I also just wanted to mention that we recently published our racial equity plan on our website. It's actually been in effect since 2017. And so the racial equity plan on our website is meant to take us through the end of 2020. And at Bikeworks, we're working on writing the next iteration of our strategic plan and racial equity plan. And I just want all of you on the phone call to know about that so you can hold us accountable to some of those goals. And also if you work for an organization that doesn't have a racial equity plan and are interested in doing that in light of the cultural movement and racial justice movement that we're in right now, can use that perhaps as a template or a starting place. So I just wanted to share that as a resource in the chat with you as well. And we'll do a follow-up with all of these resources for you after. So without any further ado, I would like to introduce Denise LaFountaine. Denise is a Bikeworks volunteer and supporter, and as you all know, she will be sharing with us her remarkable bike tour to the Arctic and back last year. Take it away, Denise. We have her muted. Denise, you're muted. We muted everybody.
Okay.
There you go.
Practice start.
We can hear you.
Okay, good. Well, thank you very much, Bikeworks, for inviting me here today to talk about my trip. And thank you, all of you, for coming out on this beautiful summer evening to be here. So that's great. So before I get started with the PowerPoint, the photos, I just am going to give a little bit of backstory to this trip. Through my travels, often when I meet people that are doing a sort of a longer adventure, that there's always a story along with it. So that's how I'm going to start with my story. So about 3 years ago, I had this boyfriend, and we had the idea of riding our bikes around the world. And so we used to watch these videos of this guy named Johan, who was Bulgarian, but he started also kind of around the world trip, but he was going to do the Americas first. And he started in this place called Tuktoyaktuk. And I had no idea where that was at. So I pulled out the map and I saw where it was at. And he went down the Dempster Highway. And I said to myself, well, I would never do that. And fast forward about 2 years, I get a call from this boyfriend, and he wants to break up. So the classic, he met somebody else. So I basically stared at a wall for about 6 months, and finally decided that I needed a plan. And for some reason, my plan went directly to, I'm riding my bike to Tuktoyaktuk, just like Johan. And so that's where it kind of all started. Of course, I said, I'm never doing that alone. So I got on a couple blogs, Adventure Cycling and Crazy Guy on a Bike, and I put ads to find somebody to go with. And actually 2 people replied, a gentleman from Florida and also from San Juan Islands. And I met them both, and they're both very lovely people. But as I went home and sat with it and thought about it, I knew that this was something that I needed to do myself. And it felt more like a quest than just a bike ride. And so, and I also told myself, well, of course I'm going to be meeting people along the way, as you do on a bike ride. And I won't always be by myself, and I'll be riding a day here and a day there with somebody. And that almost never happened. So anyhow, now I'll start with the rest of the story. Elise, I think do I just go to my PowerPoint?
Yeah, you need to click share screen at the bottom.
Oh, okay. All right, here we go. So this is just a map of the route. This is the teacher part of me, the geography. So I was in Canada the whole time. There's one road in Canada that goes to the Arctic, and it's called the Dempster Highway, and it's this very last part. There's also one road in the United States, which is in Alaska, that goes to the Arctic, which is called the Dalton Highway. So I was actually in Canada the whole time. The only time I was in Alaska was this little part, just a little part at the end. So basically this is a Canadian trip. And it was about 2,600 miles over about 2.5 months. So I also debated, do I fly up north? Do I fly to Inuvik and then go to Tuktoyaktuk and then ride my bike back? Or do I ride just from taking off from my house? And I really just want to take off from my house, but everyone told me August is like already getting into winter in the far north. And for some reason, I had a hard time getting my brain around that because it's like the best time here. So I just wasn't quite believing everybody. So I really just wanted to start from the house. And so that's ultimately what I did. And I got a couple friends from my elementary school and high school days to join me for the first 2 days. So So the first 2 days I rode to Port Townsend and then Port Angeles. And the first day was sunny, and this is what the second day looked like. And this kind of set the tone for the whole trip. For at least the first 3 weeks, I had rain at some point every day. So then I got over to Vancouver Island. And the first part, and the first 2/3 of Vancouver Island is pretty populated. It has this says it has the highest concentrations of cougars in the world. So I was a little bit preoccupied with that, but I'd always ask people and they said they usually didn't go to the road. So I stayed a lot with Warm Showers host. And for those who aren't sure what Warm Showers is, it's kind of like couch surfing, but it's people that are bikers or biker friendly and they want to host you on your ride. And so this is good when you know where you're going to be each day or a couple days ahead, so you can plan it out. But as you get into more wild areas, well, there's less warm showers and it gets harder to coordinate. So I took advantage of it on Vancouver Island and stayed actually with about 3 or 4 different families, because I knew as I got north, that wasn't going to be an option anymore. And then, of course, Vancouver Island's beautiful, apart from rain every day. And then this is north of Campbell River, where you're just long stretches of nothing, which is fantastic for a bike ride. No cars to worry about. And it was, in this moment, the sun's out and it was pretty glorious. So I wasn't quite ready for wild camping by myself. I found this convenience store. There was actually this big field somebody said I could stay in, and I don't know, too many horror movies, so I couldn't quite do it. But somehow behind the gas station seemed fine, seemed safe, and they had internet, and they're open to 10, and they had the bathrooms, and so I was quite happy back here. So this might be the kind of thing that I might do when there's no campground, or I don't know, just kind of spur of the moment. And again, the rest of the island is just beautiful. And then in Port Hardy, I took the boat to Prince Rupert. And here you'll see this area. So from Prince Rupert, I took the boat to Haida Gwaii. This is temperate rainforest. It's like the wettest area of North America. So it rained at some point every day the first 3 weeks of my trip, but in this area, it like poured every day. So Haida Gwaii is the Haida people, and this is, it was a beautiful island, very welcoming people. And then after 7 days of just at some point downpour every day, I think that this night was the 7th night, and my tent was kind of in a little puddle, and I was drenched and I was cold, and this was my first meltdown, actually my only meltdown. And I asked myself, what am I doing here? Why am I on this trip? Am I here for me, or am I here to prove to somebody that doesn't even care about me anymore that I'm some kind of badass? And I couldn't really answer it in that moment because I didn't know. I called a friend and I just said, I'm done, I'm coming home. And she said, what? What are you talking about? So I decided to give it 24 hours to kind of like suss it out and see how I felt. There was a little airport right across the street with a little bike shop, and I needed to get air in my tires. So after drying everything out, the sun dried up for a little bit, and I decided to go over there. so I got air in my tires, and I wanted to go to the end of the island, which was a dirt road, but I knew it'd be really muddy. And the bike guy said, well, I have to go down there at the end of the day. I'll have my truck, it'll be empty, and I can give you a ride back if you want. So that was kind of my green light to like, okay, I'm going for it. And on the way, I found the sign, bakery. So things were starting to look up already. And I went down this little dirt road, and here was this like little fairy bakery, a magical bakery in the middle of the woods. And I regrouped with a coffee and a cinnamon roll, and things were already starting to look up. Then I rode down this beautiful road to the end. Then I got a ride back. And then it started pouring down rain again. And I found this little gazebo. So I wanted to go back to the main town, which is Queen Charlotte, to take the ferry back. And it was pouring down rain again. And I pulled over, and these two were in the gazebo too, trying to get out of the rain. And this little guy is French, and he's Cuban, and he with his family are sailing around the world for a year. And they just got off the boat, and I happened to run into them. And as we were talking, this guy said, hey, I'll be back in a second. And he runs off, and he comes back with a cup of coffee for me and 2 chocolate bars. So another sign. Food is definitely a sign. And then I didn't have a place to stay that night, but this woman that I'd met on the ferry on the way over 7 days earlier, I ran into her, and she gave me her little studio apartment for the night. So I was dry. So all these things started to come together, and I was starting to feel better, starting to feel more connected. I felt very kind of disconnected. I felt like I had this call to do this trip, but I wasn't sure if I was really ready to answer the call. And now I was starting to like shift a little bit. Originally, there was warm showers on the island, but the guy was busy. It was a young man who'd gone to the island to be a STEM teacher and decided to stay, got married and stayed, and he started this bike repair program 2 nights a week. So I just happened to be there, which was great, and participated a little bit. So at the end of the 24 hours, I was basically decided that yes, I was doing this trip. I was excited, and I never looked back. It was gung-ho after this. As you see, it didn't really take much, but it was just some of these like little connections. I don't know, it just made all the difference. So then I went back to Prince Rupert, and the next day was going to be a sunny day. So I said, that's my day to take off. And I left Prince Rupert, and I rode my bike to Terrace, which was I guess it was my longest day. It was 95 miles, like uphill the whole way. And so here's Prince Rupert, and then up to Terrace. So I got to Terrace, and again, there was a warm showers. This was really going to be my last warm showers. Here's the ride up to Terrace. So there was another warm showers. There's 2 families actually, and I contacted both of them, and both of them were going to be out of town, but this family said, we're going to be out of town, but we have a key hidden in the back under the stairs. Go get it, stay as long as you'd like. So I was very surprised, but it was wonderful. I got there that night and was exhausted, regrouped the next day, and was going to leave the next day, but I saw in the weather report that there was going to be 2 nights of electrical storms. So I decided to stay. On the second day that I got up, or the day that I was ready to head out, I got a couple texts from different friends saying, did you hear that there were 3 murders on the Dempster Highway, which has never happened before. And so I didn't know what to do. So I went to the police to register. So up until this time, kind of my biggest fear had been grizzlies. I did all this research on grizzlies, on what to do when I ran into a grizzly. So my brain was like grizzly on the brain for a long time. So now these murders happened, and it kind of like shifted my fear from grizzly now to, assassins. So I kind of like, it was funny. I went to register at the police station and called 2 contacts, a friend and my brother. And of course, there's no phone service on the Dempster Highway. So I don't think I never had communication with my brother the whole 10 days. And I think maybe my friend a couple times. So it didn't really do too good to have contacts or even register with the police. But anyhow, so I started out, and every day I tried to get somewhere at the end of the night where there would, like, official campsite where there would be somebody, just for the security and for the update on where were the murderers, what was happening, what was the latest news. So that was kind of, I guess, the excitement on the road for everybody, and every van that would pass you, and people were leery and nobody wanted to stop. It was a really kind of an eerie feeling the whole time. And that lasted so the Dempster took me I think it took me 10 days, and that lasted about 5 days. And then finally we found out that they went to Manitoba, and so they were out of the area. So then I started to refocus on the grizzlies. And I didn't see any grizzlies on the Dempster, but I did see 6 black bear on the road. So then I would just stop, wait, make noise so they'd see me, and then wait till they got off the road and then continue. But it was scary because there was no cars around. So I definitely just stop. But it was also kind of fun. So here's my bike. I have a horn. I have bear spray. And I also had a whistle. So that's my bear protection. I have this little boom box, I call it, my speaker. So I didn't turn it on for a while, but it's hard you forget to make noise. And that's the thing, you come upon the bears and you scare them. So they say to make noise, but it's hard to make noise all the time. So I end up listening to this thing, sometimes a podcast or music, which I didn't always like, because it takes you out of the zone, so to speak. So I was always going back and forth between music and just kind of my own thoughts, and back to podcast or music, just for the bear factor. And now, so yeah, 569 kilometers to Alaska Highway. Bear warnings. There's 2 bears that actually went up a tree near one of these trees right next to my tent. Very disheartening. It's about 10 o'clock at night in this photo, so it stayed light till midnight most of the time, which I liked. So as I started up the Dempster Highway, I was hoping that I'd run into people to ride with. And like I said, I never did, but I probably every day, or at least every 2 days, there would be somebody coming south. And I'd always ask them, have you seen anybody going north? And after a while, everyone would tell me, yes, there's one guy going north. He's maybe 2 days ahead of you. And then maybe he's 1 day ahead of you. So it was this Bulgarian guy. And they said, looks like he's weighted down, so he's up ahead. But this is the first guy I came and crossed my path. He's French, and I loved his bike setup. He has lots of stuff. I asked him why he had so much stuff, and he said because he started in the summer, but he wanted to go through the winter through like the Continental Divide Trail. So, I mean, I thought I was prepared for the winter too, and I just had my little bike. So I was thinking he knew something I didn't. But he has his own little DIY horn, and he has a little pony mascot. Anyhow, he was really a character. And then I ran across this family from Germany. They have 2 kids, actually. They have a child here, and they had a child in this little trailer. And they were going from Whitehorse to Vancouver, and they have their bear box. I never had a bear box. I just kept my food in my front panniers, all my toiletries and my food, and I didn't have a problem. Some people told me that they had a bear box because of the squirrels and other animals and rodents would chew through their panniers. But again, I was lucky I didn't have a problem. But they have a lot of stuff too. I guess that's what happens when you're caring for 2 extra people. These 2 guys, I think, were from Wisconsin. This guy, we changed contact information. He went on to do the Continental Divide Trail and got appendicitis and had to go home emergency from the Continental Divide. So stopped his trip early. So stuff happens. And I think they have bear boxes too. There's I think bear box there. This guy was going from Alaska to Argentina. And so everybody I asked, is there anybody going north? Is there anybody going north? And again, everybody's like, there's one guy, he's a day ahead of you. This guy was from Scotland. This guy is from Scotland. I met another guy from New Zealand, and they had met each other somewhere like in Turkmenistan or something like that, like 3 years earlier, and they ran into each other again here. So it can be a small community. These 2 are from Brazil, and they came up from Brazil on their motorcycle. And these 2 are French, and they shipped their Citroën to Uruguay and started up to Uruguay to Alaska. So all kinds of adventures out there. You run into all kinds of people, and it's really fun to share stories. And the rest of the time, you're just on the road by yourself. And here's a guy from New Zealand. He's the only person on the whole trip that I ran into and actually camped with. So it was fun to exchange stories. And then I made it to the Yukon. And the Yukon is 20% bigger than California, but only has 40,000 people. So you can ride for a long time and not see anybody. And it's pretty spectacular. You're just out there riding every day in solitude, and you have all the space around you and silence and nature, and all you can do is just sort of reflect, and that's exactly what I needed to do. So really, I think I was kind of on high alert until I got into this area, and then I started to really kind of get into the ride, really, I guess the relaxing and letting go and starting to have a little shift, and here all those emotions started coming out, the sadness and the grief, and also joy and gratitude for being here, and regret and shame. This is kind of where it just like all unloaded. And And it was great. I needed it. It felt like I was starting to make some kind of transition here in this and out in nature. And then I got to what's called Watson Lake, and this is the Post Sign Park. And this is the only place where I got a hotel room. And because it was $150 a night, which was way more than I budgeted for a hotel, but everything was this expensive. And I felt like I wanted to regroup, wash clothes, eat in a restaurant, take a shower, sleep in a bed. So I got there at 6, and I think I stayed until they kicked me out the next day. But yeah, so the longer you go on so the more time you have, obviously the less money you have. So you get resourceful. And on this trip, I camped the whole time unless I stayed at warm showers, and this is the only hotel. And a lot of the camping, after the season, it's free. Nobody's taking money, so it's free. And then it was minimal. Well, could be $10 a night, something like that. So it's not expensive. And then I cook my own food. I bring everything with me. So even though I'm gone 2.5 months, or what seems like a long time, it's minimal cost. Then I started the Alcan, 275 miles to Whitehorse. And again, just long open roads, quiet, solitude, nature, and just every day sort of just processing emotion, processing just my life. I'd go back and think about something when I was 5 years old, and then I'd skip ahead to last week. And it was just like this constant wheel turning, but in a really good way. There's a little shelter that I found. Again, it was still raining at some point, probably every day or every other day. So I was riding on this deserted road, and I see this little dot, and the dot's getting closer and closer. And I'm like, I think that's a bicycle. And as we got closer, we kind of pulled in together side by side, and I looked at him and I said, Adam. And he looked at me, and I was like, I know you from Instagram. I follow you on Instagram. So he's from the UK. I've never met him, but it was really fun running into him. So we just parked our bikes and sat on the side of the road and talked for about 3 hours. So you never know who you're going to meet. And he was doing a around the world trip too, so he's really geared up. Just random. So this French family came up beside me in their RV, and the woman asked me if I wanted to ride, which I really didn't because it was a beautiful day. But I don't know, I sensed that she wanted to company. And so I met her at the next town, which was only a couple miles away. And we started talking, and she asked if I wanted to. They're going to go to this lake, which I wouldn't have gone to by myself because it was out of my route. But I said, okay, what the heck? And it was beautiful. Here's my little tent next to the RV. And it was really fun. So I spent 2 days with them. So a reminder that, sometimes you just go off your path. It's okay to do something different. There's been times where I've been like rigid, and it's like, no, I have to do this. I have to keep going. I have an agenda. But I often regret not taking these opportunities. So I was really happy that I did. And it was a reminder that, I got to just be flexible and open and kind of go where the road leads sometimes. Now I'm going up to Whitehorse. Stayed with another warm showers couple in Whitehorse for a couple nights and regrouped. And all along the way, when I told people where I'm going, they kept on saying, you got to hurry up. You got to hurry up. You got to keep going. You got to. And so I started to take them seriously when I got here, which was now like almost the end of July. So I'm on my way to Dawson City. This is the first woman that I ran into. She, I believe, was from Denmark. So we chatted for a while. She was Whitehorse to Vancouver, I believe, was her ride. And then Dawson City. So when I decided to do this trip, and I knew I was going to do it alone, my biggest fear was to do the Dempster Highway alone. So that's why I thought, I'm surely going to run into somebody that's heading up that way, and I'll surely be able to ride with somebody. And like I mentioned, the only person that anybody had seen was this Bulgarian guy that was one day ahead of me. So when I got to Dawson City, I went right to the visitor center, and I saw a bike leaning against the wall, and I knew exactly whose bike it was. And I walked in, and the visitor center was full. I looked around, I knew who it was. I don't even know how. And I walked over to him and I said, "Is that your bike out there?" He's like, "Yeah." And I said, "Okay." And then I chatted for a while and I said, "Do you want to ride your bike up the Dempster? Are you going up the Dempster first?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Do you want to ride together?" And he's like, "Okay." So it wasn't perfect, but it somehow worked. So this is Dawson City from up above, and the Yukon River, and it was a very cool place to go. If you ever have a chance to go. It's where the gold rush is, and it's dirt roads, and it has or dirt streets, and it's very quaint. It's very preserved, just like it was in the 1800s. So it's very charming on the Yukon River. I stayed at this little hostel that was across the river. So this little boat was free, and it went back and forth all day. So yeah, it was in the city, and then went back to sleep. And anyhow, it was pretty cool. And so here is the Bulgarian guy. As you can see, it's raining out. So we decided to go the next day, and I still wanted to see if there was other people maybe to go. So I put a message in the visitor center looking for somebody that could either join us or another person to go up the Dempster with. Also, it's about a 10-day bike ride and almost no provisions once you get on the road. So you can do what's a food drop. So you get just a box of food, leave it in the visitor center, and somebody that's going up will just bring it and drop it off at the halfway point, a place called Eagle Plains. And you just trust they're going to do that. And they do. So when I put my name at the visitor center for somebody else, I went back the next day, and the woman at the visitor center was very excited because she said, "There's another person here. This guy from Australia just came in, and he's going up the Dempster." So I saw his bike, and I was like, wow, I don't think he's going to want to go with me. It looks like MacGyver or something here. He actually had a raft. He rafted down the Yukon. Yeah, the Yukon River. Apparently he was doing some hunting on the way. So he put his bike in the raft, got to Dawson, and was going to do the Dempster Highway. So he went to do laundry and came back, and I asked him if he wanted to come with us, and he said yes. But then he never came back. So we decided after waiting for 2 hours that we were just going to go ahead without him. But then a German guy showed up. So the three of us ended up taking off together, kind of in the rain, but we were only going to go as far as an abandoned house and stay the first night. Then the German guy was going south, and we were going to continue on the Dempster. And so here we are at the abandoned house for the first night. And it was really fun. It was fun to be with a group of cyclists, bike tours, and to hear their stories and have some camaraderie. And so Pecho, the Bulgarian guy, he'd been around the world on his bike, and the German guy was doing I think the from Alaska was going down. So it was just fun to have a night together. And so started the Dempster Highway, which goes to Inuvik. And then from Inuvik, there is another 100 miles that goes to Tuktoyaktuk. And that last little 100 miles only became a road in 2017. So up until then, most people stopped at Inuvik. So Dawson to Inuvik, and this is new. So after about 2 hours of riding our bikes together, Pecho and I knew that we weren't really a good fit. He had a ton of food. He bought all his food in bulk. So he had like a mountain of food, and he was going very slow. So we decided that we would just meet up, like I told him where I was going, and we'd meet up at the end of the night. His way of traveling was he'd get up like 6 in the morning and start riding. And I don't know what he did all day, but he ended up at 10 o'clock at night. So yeah, we had very different styles. So yeah, the first part of the journey, as you can see, there's also not a lot of cars. Once in a while, a car will pass. Every so often, like enough to space these out to sleep at night. I think I got to sleep in 2 or 3 of them, which is great. You're not supposed to sleep in these little shelters. They're just for eating, but because there's nobody around, I end up sleeping in them. And so that was great. And there was just nobody around. This woman was going south, and she's from Russia. She had a boat. This is a raft. She had a raft made. She rafted down the Mackenzie River with her bike and all of her gear by herself, like weeks on the Mackenzie River, and then got out and biked to Tuktoyaktuk, and now is biking down the Dempster Highway. So she was amazing. Yeah. And kind of dirt, muddy roads, cold. So after, let's see, maybe the first 5 days, I would, sometimes Pecho would just put a note out saying, I came and I left. I came, I slept 5 hours and I'm gone. I always kind of knew he was out there, which was nice. If a car passed me and stopped and asked if I needed anything, I would ask if they saw the other bicyclist. So I kind of always knew where he was, even though we might not always see each other. So on this particular day, he left at 6, and probably, I think at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I ran into him. And I was hoping that he would join me for the rest of the day. It was about 5 o'clock, and he didn't want to. He just wanted to hang out. So I wanted him to save me from having to do all this wild camping out here on my own in grizzly land, but he would never save me. So finally I just said, okay, Denise, you're doing this. And but this night I found this little, in the middle of nowhere, this bathroom with these garbage cans. And so the great thing about these garbage cans is the back opens up, and so you can put your food and your toiletries back there. So whenever I could, I'd camp near one of these things so I could just put everything away and not have to worry about it. I mean, the other thing you could do is just put it far away from you or put it up in a tree, but it's really hard. This is boreal forest, and it's very short, and it's really hard to hang anything. So I always went for these garbage cans. And this was my longest day of biking. I biked 12 hours. I started at 10 in the morning, and this was 10 at night now. And I never wanted to stop because nothing looked appealing to me to hang out for the rest of the night. So I decided to just keep going until I was so exhausted that I couldn't go anymore. And then then I got to the halfway point, Eagle Plains, and it started pouring. And there's a hotel that's very expensive, even more expensive than the $150 a night place. So I asked if there's any place sheltered to sleep, and they gave this, usually the ambulance is here, but it was getting repaired, so they let me sleep here for the night. Then made it to the Arctic Circle. There was 2 river crossings. The first one was no problem. The second one, the weather took a turn, and it got so windy that they weren't running the boat, and they said they weren't going to run the boat, and it was freezing outside and windy, and it was going to snow, and so at that time, Pecho and I decided to ride together because the weather was taking a bad turn. And at the last minute, a worker that needed to get across for some emergency reason, they took him. And because we were on bikes, they said they'd take us too. So that was the only reason we got over that river, which we were quite pleased about. And yeah, this is what the road looks like. So it was very muddy. So a big storm came in, and we found this abandoned house. So we stayed there about 24 hours. It was thunder and lightning and pouring down rain and those dirt roads. And so we hung out here. And then finally we get to the end of the Dempster Highway. So we still wanted to go to Tuktoyaktuk, about 100 miles away. And now winter storm had come in, and it's probably about, I don't know, the 15th of August. This was a community center, and they had this little sheltered area. And we stayed here for 3 nights, actually, trying to figure out how we're going to get to Tuktoyaktuk because it was so cold and miserable. It froze every night, and it was freezing every day and very windy. We were super lucky. In the morning before the community center opened, we got up early to gather our stuff before people started coming. The janitor there let us take showers in the community building. So it was really nice. We got to use the bathrooms and have a shower, and this became our little hangout for about 3 days. And then we decided we would just hitch to the end, which I was actually fine with. I don't know, it felt like it was going to be miserable out there for a couple more nights. So we just hitched to the end. We got a ride in this van. And there I am at Tuktoyaktuk. And this is what the Arctic Ocean and Tuktoyaktuk looks like. It's an Inuit village. Inuit is also another name for Eskimo.
Tuktoyaktuk, Arctic Ocean.
As you can see, it's very windy and cold. I thought about jumping in for a minute, and then that minute passed and I decided not to. And then they had a big snowstorm on the way back. So it was beautiful, but very, yeah, cold. Then that halfway point that I passed going up, came back on, there was a semi jackknifed on the road, and the road was closed and the storm came in. So everybody had to stay at this hotel. So we all bonded. Everybody was together for 24 hours in this hotel. And it was really fun. After being by myself for so long and then being with Pecho for 5 days, it was fun to have this group to hang out with. And these three are from Seattle. So my hometown folks were there. And then we all came back together. There was a flat tire. So it was really fun kind of end to the Dempster Highway. So I hitched, so from Tuk, instead of riding back, originally I thought I might fly back from Inuvik back to Vancouver and just ride from Vancouver back to Seattle. But it didn't feel like my trip was done. Because I had to hustle to get up there, I still had some time. And I really wanted to continue riding. So we hitched back to Dawson City. And then from Dawson City, I rode the top of the world highway into Alaska and then just continued on the trip. The Chicken, great little town if you've never been there. Great bakery. She gives big cinnamon rolls to bicyclists, definitely worth it. Fun little saloon that had 3 Aussies and it was filled, 3 people and it was filled up, and that was fun. And then a friend joined me in Dawson City. Well, she joined me in Chicken actually. And so she was with me about 5 days on this little leg, which was fun. And we rode to Tok, and then this is patches through Alaska. And again, this is now after Labor Day weekend. So this is the Alcan Highway, but there's no cars. And I rode through these 4 national parks. It says these 4 parks make up the largest internationally protected landmass on Earth. And they're gorgeous. If you ever have a chance to go here, it's stunning. And most of the campgrounds were closed. You could still stay there, but there wasn't people there. So very quiet. And freezing. So this last 2 weeks got down to freezing every night as well. So probably the last month was cold every night. You could see the frost on the table, but often the water bottles would freeze as well. But beautiful, sunny in the day. This was called the Green Shack. So there was a big distance with nothing. And I guess in the winter for skiing, they use this. So I knew I could stay there. And it's just this little shack. And I really love staying here. About a week later, I'd met somebody else who'd stayed here. And I said, I really liked it, but it was so dark when you closed the door. It was pitch dark. There was a window, but it was boarded up. And he said, oh yeah, they boarded it up because the grizzly broke through it. I was like, oh, well, I'm glad I didn't know that before I stayed there. And then he said, were mice running across your face all night? They're like, he stayed there and they're like mice everywhere. And I was like, well, I didn't get that either. So it was quite fun. And this is going down to Haines, Alaska. My little camp spot. One of the grizzlies I saw. And then I end up taking the Alaska Marine Ferry home. Actually, I considered taking this. I didn't really know how I was getting home. All these kind of were last minute decisions. But at some point on my trip, there was a strike on the Alaska Marine Highway. And so this wasn't even an option. And it wasn't until like a couple days before I left that the strike ended. And because I only have a bike, I don't have to reserve. And so I was able to get on it. So I was making a lot up as I went along, being spontaneous. And that was a beautiful ride home, 4 nights from Haines to Bellingham. And I slept on deck, as many do. And then home, this is actually Camino Island, where my friend lives. And then I went the next day to Seattle. And that was, I don't know, I went on some weird route. It was 85 miles to Seattle. And it was like my second longest day. And instead of it being light until midnight, it was dark at 7. And it started raining. So I was riding home in the dark, in the rain, exhausted, and anyhow, but I made it safe and made it round trip. So that is the end of my story.
Wow, congrats, amazing.
Thank you.
I'll just do a quick time check, everybody. I know we're a few minutes over, so if you do need to leave now, totally understand that. And we are still recording, and we're going to move ahead with the Q&A, and we will send everybody who registered a link to the recording after the fact. So just checking in about that. But we did have a couple questions already pop up in the chat. Eric wanted to know what kind of food you ate on your adventure.
Good question. Yeah, I only have the jet boil. So all I really ate is whatever you can boil. So a lot of oatmeal. Let's see what else. Couscous. They cook really fast, really easy. Let's see, what else did I have? Sometimes noodles. I could put noodles in there. And then power bars, sandwiches, cheese, like sausage, just really easy stuff to cook up.
Nice.
So.
There were some other questions. Was the terrain usually flat or hilly from Stuart?
From Stuart.
No, someone named Stuart asked.
Oh, I was like, where's Stuart? I think that's up. I think I went there. Actually, it wasn't bad. It was gradual hills, but it wasn't like terrible uphill. It wasn't terrible. It was mostly gradual uphill and flat. There wasn't, I mean, there was some hard, but that wasn't like what marked the trip. Yeah.
Do you think most people were going north to south because then it would be a mild gradual downhill?
I don't know. I think it makes sense to go from north to south because you have more time. It's not going to get cold as fast. And that was my thought too, is like, if I started north, I'd have all the time in the world to go south, because then I had until, September, or even October. So I think that is mostly the reason. And it makes sense.
Stephen asked if you had any overuse injuries from your trip.
I was so comfortable on my bike. I got new Jones bars before I left because I have a Surly, as you saw, and they have drop downs before. But I was getting tendonitis from braking. So I needed a different braking system. So I put the Jones bar on, and it was so comfortable. My body didn't hurt at all. The only day my body hurt was coming back on the boat and sleeping on the boat deck. Like I couldn't move the next day. But every other day I was just fine. Like I was actually, every day was kind of like check my body and go, oh my God, I feel great. What's going on here? It was kind of amazing.
Amazing. Julie asked if you had any mechanical problems with your bike you couldn't fix yourself on the road.
Again, I was really lucky. I had only one flat tire, and that was on the Dempster Highway, and there was a pull-off. So it's pretty narrow on the Dempster, and there's brush that comes right to the road. And so there's really no place to fix your bike. But I saw that there was a pull-off, so I just pushed it to the pull-off. And when I got there, there was a truck at the pull-off, and he had air on his truck. So he just helped me, put air in my tire. So it was great. Yeah. So I was really lucky with the mechanical part of it.
Wow, that is lucky. Joseph asked, what was the longest stretch between provisions for which you needed to pack food? I guess like between stocking up.
Yeah, so on the Dempster is definitely the longest. That was only like, let's say 5 days. And then there was a food drop. So potentially, if you didn't have that food drop, it could have been up to like 10 days. But I did find a little store along the way. So I didn't really know about it, but it was there. So I could have gotten food. But yeah, 5 or 6 days.
Mm-hmm. 6 days. Couple people asking about navigation, electricity, and then some other, if you had a satellite phone for emergencies, any like extra kind of technical or specialized gear like that?
No, I didn't have a satellite phone. I'm an old school winger. I wing it. And so far it's all worked out, but I do have Maps.me on my phone. So most of the time there's no cell service at all. So so Maps.me did work. Let's see, what else did I use? I mean, that's about it.
And then did you have like a solar charger or something?
I had just a regular little charger, not a solar charger. So I just have a little pack, which was never enough. Yeah.
So you're able to recharge that a handful of times.
Sometimes. Most of the time, not all the time. Yeah, I have a bigger one. I don't know why I didn't bring it. I regretted that. It was because it's heavy. And the only reason I didn't bring a solar charger is because I wasn't sure if there was going to be sun all the time either. And because it was raining most of the time, there was a lot of time where it was not sunny. It was kind of miserable.
Yeah.
So I don't think so for example, Pecho did have a solar recharger, and it wasn't working most of the time. So
solar charge only works if there's sun.
Exactly.
Not so much in the Arctic.
Yeah.
A couple people asking about how you took your photos. Those just all on your phone?
Yeah.
Nice. Kevin asked, was there anything you were packing along with you that you realized you didn't need?
It's a good question. I packed pretty tight. I mean, I think I did use at some point everything. I feel like I was pretty minimalist and pretty tight on things. So no, I think I definitely used everything at some point.
Nothing extraneous.
No, not really. I got it down. Yeah. I guess what I would say is I carry a lot of water, and you don't need to carry that much water. You can get water. Obviously, there's lots of water. My thing is I fill up my water, and I just don't want to have to go searching for it, or even if it's just down the creek, I don't want to go down the creek. I have to say I was a little paranoid about the grizzlies. And so just going down a creek in the middle of nowhere, I don't know what you're going to run into most of the time. And so I just kind of wanted just to have water with me. And then towards the evening when I knew I was going to camp, then I would fill my waters up again. And so I just from other trips where I have ran out, it's kind of like my one thing that I always like to have stocked is plenty of water. So. might be
That's maybe
overkill
a
for some people.
personal choice.
Yeah, definitely.
But the grizzly thing is a legitimate consideration for sure. Stephen asked if you noticed any physical changes in your body.
I mean, I probably lost maybe 7 pounds. And yeah, you definitely feel fit. Yeah, you're definitely fit. I mean, you feel solid and healthy, I guess. You eat a lot of junk on the road. So it's really hard. I mean, you're running across a lot of convenience stores. And, for a person that likes sugar, even I was like, oh God, another candy bar, another whatever. It's kind of gross after a while. And so nutrition takes a hit. So when I do get to a place like Whitehorse, a bigger town, I try to find the better stores and get some good nutritious food. And and did I bring protein? But all in all, pretty good. I mean, I felt pretty good, pretty strong.
Yeah, it's a good reminder about some of the challenges to healthy food access in rural communities.
Very much so.
Sort of social justice and environmental issue.
Definitely.
Michael wanted you to please remind us what was the name of the person that made the videos you watched before your trip.
Oh gosh. Maybe it's Johan, and his name, like I said, he's Bulgarian, so he has a really hard name that starts with a G. So I'll look for it, and can I send it to?
Yeah, if you're able to find those, we can put it in our follow-up email with the recording.
Yeah, he is amazing.
Denise can find them. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely will. He is definitely amazing. Somebody you'd want to watch videos. Yeah.
Cool. Ellen asked what went into preparing for your trip.
I guess I should add that I did a big trip in South America the year before. So that trip took a lot of preparation. So I kind of had everything ready for this one. And so it wasn't as huge of a undertaking. But that said, I guess I changed my handlebars out. Getting my head around the grizzly thing was a big part of it. I talked to like every park ranger in this side of the Mississippi. I read books. I looked at YouTube videos. Like I thought once I was in my tent, I was like in the safe zone. So I was like, oh, when you're in your tent, you're safe. I mean, you made it for that day. And then I saw these videos of people getting attacked by grizzlies in their tent. I was like, are you kidding me? I didn't know that, so it was all about the grizzly for a while.
Bears could penetrate tents.
Yeah, I didn't know that they could do that. So it took me a while to like, okay, Denise. I mean, that was like the deal breaker for me, really. And so I really had to like work up to that. And so that was the preparation. And I guess deciding, like, am I still going to do this even if I'm going alone the whole time? If I don't find anybody for the Dempster, I was worried about the Dempster, kind of like, that's why I kept asking, is there anybody going north? Is there anybody going north? And it was okay. I mean, like I said, I barely rode with Pecho, but just kind of knowing he was out there was helpful to me. So that was it.
Wow, yeah. So a good amount of prep, all things considered.
There was a person actually that saw my posting that didn't want to go because they went the year before. So he shared a lot of information with me. I basically needed somebody to tell me, yes, this is doable. That was the bottom. As soon as I could like go, okay, other people have done it, it's doable, then I can do it. That was
now you were that person for all of us.
Yeah, go.
Dave asked if you could briefly recap the timeline, like the approximate like day you left and returned and kind of key key points, kind of with the timing.
Yeah. So I left, I work in a community college, so I had to work spring quarter, which ended like the very end of June. So I think I took off like the 1st of July. I mean, I would have loved to leave like the 1st of June. I would have left a month earlier if I could have. So it wasn't great time-wise, but so the 1st of July, then I got, let's say, up to Prince Rupert, up to, northern British Columbia by like the 3rd week of July. And so then I did the Casier probably the last week of July, first couple days of August, Whitehorse, probably like the 7th, 8th of August. And then I probably started the Dempster about 12th or 13th of August to like the 20 something of August. And then that big storm did come in, and I think it was a fluke storm, but it was gale force winds and snow, and even the people from that area said the storms don't usually hit that early. But anyhow, I knew I had to be there by the end of August anyhow. So that was my goal, to be there, by at least the end of August. So because everybody kept on saying, you got to hurry, I got there maybe like the 20th of August. So like a week earlier. And I just got in. If I would have been a day or two later, I wouldn't have been able to do the last part of the Dempster Highway. Because that Australian guy with the bow and arrows and the raft, he actually never ended up going on the Dempster Highway, because he stayed in Dawson 2 more days, and then that storm came in and they shut down the road, and he was never able to go. And the only reason I know that is because 2 weeks later, or 3 weeks later, when I was in Alaska, I was in a rest stop, a bathroom, and I heard an Australian accent, and I looked over and it was him. And I said, "Where were you? We never saw you on the Dempster." And he said, "I never went because a storm came in." So, yeah.
I think there's time for a few more. Sue was wondering what size tires you ran.
20 Schwalbe 20 inch. 20 inch, 2 inch, sorry, 2 inch. It's like, wow, those are big. Yeah, 2.
Catherine, I think, has some, based on their comments, has some Alaskan touring experience. Is that right, Catherine, if you're on the call? Wanted to know if, was confirming that you didn't take a shotgun as a grizzly deterrent.
I did not. I got some advice to take a shotgun from various people, and I was like, okay, I'm the one. I just felt like I'm the one that's going to get shot in that scenario. I don't know. I just trust myself.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know what they're like up there. They tell you that, and it's really. I mean,
yeah,
it's real.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I'm really impressed you did it in a bike, honey. I did it in a car.
Oh, okay. Well, when I got into Canada, I never saw a gun in Canada. I'm sure they were packing guns. But when I got into Alaska, just for that brief time, everybody had a gun in Alaska. So, yeah.
Did you ever find out what happened with those Cassiar murders? Was that?
Yes. It was these 2 teens. Nobody really knows why, but they were kind of like on a shooting spree, and they killed a young Aussie guy and his American girlfriend, who like got a flat tire in their car on the side of the road, just shot them both. And anyhow, then they burned a car, they stole the car, they killed somebody, and then they took off for Manitoba. And a week later, the rumor is they found their bodies in the swamp in Manitoba.
Wow.
I know.
That is very sad.
I know. And so it's not, nobody knows for sure. Did they commit suicide? Were they killed? Were they eaten by gators or grizzlies or polar bears? So it's a mystery.
Potent reminder of the dangers of traveling alone.
That's right.
Glad you're-
Yeah.
Last question a couple people have asked, and then we'll sign off. What's next, Denise? Any other big adventures planned? Obviously, can't. Let's say if and when you can do a long bike tour again, what would be next for you?
Yeah. Well, I would love to do the Alaska to Argentina. I was actually had that on the calendar for this summer. But that's not going to happen. So I'm going to see if it's going to be possible for next summer. So if anybody wants to join me for any of that, that's cool. I'm up for that. This summer, I may try to just ride across Washington State. And so that, and I'm thinking of that, or I'm thinking of following the route of the Columbia River through Washington State out to the ocean at Portland.
Oh, beautiful.
Which would be kind of fun too. So those are my two things that I kind of am thinking about.
Well, thank you everyone for your great questions. I'm going to turn it over to our executive director, Deb Sauls, to sign us off tonight.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for the questions. Great question.
Thank you, Denise, for the story and the photos. Remarkable.
Okay.
Yes, such an amazing story. So epic. Denise actually also presented live in March back at Bikeworks down in Classroom A before we closed up shop for COVID. And I've heard the story before, but I'm still so much awe I have for all of this. So it's great.
Thank you.
And I'm glad to know you, and I'm glad you're a volunteer at Bikeworks. So thank you so much for that. Also, I just want to announce we'll be doing a presentation every month. So if anyone has a great story that they want to tell, let us know, and we'll try to get you on the calendar if we can. Next month, Phyllis Porter is going to present about her cycling adventures and getting to know the bicycle better. And she just, in the last year or so, founded the chapter of Black Girls Do Bike. So hear a little about that and cycling club she's been involved with and street advocacy. So looking forward to that. And again, thank you everyone for attending. If you are not connected with Bikeworks, we'll send out a link to sign up for our e-newsletter and other ways to stay involved so you can hear about these presentations that we're making. I'm glad we can do this in a virtual format. I think it works well, and I'm so glad we had so many people on the call tonight. We really appreciate it. If questions keep coming in, we'll try to have Denise answer some of those in our reply back to all. And I remember one part of the story where you're biking home and you felt like nobody understood your adventure. So you put on the front of your bike that you had gone from Tuktoyaktuk to Seattle, and for people to understand that. And I feel the same like when you're at the top of a mountain, like at Mount Rainier, and people are just coming off the mountain, but I drove up to the parking lot. So it is always good to know that behind every biker might be a long adventure that we didn't even know happened.
That's right too.
Yeah, but I'm so glad you've shared this with us, and it is an amazing story, and it does put all kinds of inspiration for me and for everyone on the call to know all these things are doable.
Yeah, for sure. Very much so. Very much so. Living proof. Well, thank you, Deb, and thank you again, Bikeworks, for having me. It was super fun to be here.
It was our pleasure, Denise. Thank you.
All right.
All right, everybody, have a wonderful night. Stay safe out there, and hope to see you on the other side in person one day.
Sure. Okay. Good night.
Good night.
All right, thank you.
Hi, Lenora.
Hi, everyone.
Oh, I'm still on because I don't know how to leave.
We usually just stay on till the end. Just,
Oh, okay.
I mean, you don't have